My name is John O'Neill, and I want to welcome everybody here. I think this should be a terrific afternoon. When we were trying to plan the Centennial celebration, the first thought was we'd try to bring in a blockbuster speaker, and somebody said, it's going to be like going to graduation. You bring in some name-brand speaker who may or not appeal to a certain segment of the audience, but we're not going to get it, that's not special. And then somebody else said, well, we have so many graduates who are distinguished and entertaining and really have something to offer. How about if we have a bunch of panels and we'll get some of our better known grads to come in and talk about their area of specialty, and more important, maybe to set up a Q&A so that those of you who attend can pick his brain and even get more out of it. And that's how we ended up with what we have. And I don't know about you, but except the fact that I have to be here to introduce these two speakers, I was torn between which one of the panels. There were at least 3 of the 5 I really wanted to go to, and they are going to be recorded, and the site will tell you within a week. It'll tell you if you were interested in hearing about Tulsa Black or what have you. You could go to the site and it'll tell you how to get those speeches. But we're here today. We have 2 wonderful speakers. I'm going to be very brief. Our first speaker is Keith Angel. Keith is an entrepreneurial leader in the technology area.
Oh, geez.
He's been an executive in 5 successful venture-backed, high-growth tech companies. He just told me that his last 3 ventures that he's been involved in, all of which have been sold, were in the area of cloud computing. And unless you've been hiding in an igloo for the last 5 years, you know that cloud computing is a major factor in the whole technology area. He's been very involved in that.
I know the name.
He's president of Western Advisors, which is an advisory firm that helps tech companies with executive searches and strategy and
Nimble.
He was 5 years at IBM in a bunch of different capacities, and educationally he got a BS in engineering from Duke, an MS in engineering from Northeastern, and then an MBA in finance at LSU. Very well educated man. Certainly the best educated man in his class. I can state that. He's published more than 50 articles on the intersection of optimization of technology and finance, and he's a proud member of the class of 75.
There you go.
And his brother Michael is a 1980 graduate, so it runs in the family.
Mm-hmm.
He lives nearby. He lives right on Lake Warmont. So Keith, come on up. The format, by the way, will be Keith will talk. Then Greg will talk, and then we'll come back and do a wrap-up, and then have a Q&A. And while it says this is going to be an hour and a half, our time is your time. We'll go as long as it takes. Thanks.
Do you want to introduce Greg when he comes up? Or?
Yeah, when he comes up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If I talk without the mic, can you hear me okay? Yeah. In the back? All right, thank you. So thanks for having me. It's really my honor to be here. The last time I spoke in a conference setting, it was one of those conferences where you go to a separate room, and I went to my room. I was the first speaker. I kind of got up behind the podium, and I was waiting, and the time came, and 2 people kind of wandered in, and 5 minutes later, a 3rd person. So I thought, all right, I got to start anyway. And generally what I do is I poll the audience before I start. And so I said, so tell me about yourselves. And the first guy said, well, I'm the 2nd speaker. And the 3rd guy was the moderator. So this is much better. Thank you. So, 100 years here, and I grew up in New Milford. I went to New Milford Public Schools. I was a day student here. But I grew up with the Cbury family, right? So the Humes and the Haxos and the Adams and the Mullins and the Sheehan's, all the people in New Milford, the Breens that taught, the faculty members here. What a tremendous legacy over those 100 years that we've had, right? And Tom and Betsy, who poured their life into the school for 25 years now, just tremendous. So my heart goes there to the school and to the 100 years of excellence that's been created here. It was great for me the time that I was here. As John said, my brother was here. We both went from here to Duke. And, it's really been a big impact on our family. So a great passion in the Angel family for the Cbury School. And what I'm going to do is tie in the 5 values. So honesty, respect, all the way through the self-reliance. You'll hear it themed into our discussion for today, because this is in fact values that have true value in the marketplace, and if you take these forward, and I'll give examples of how I've done that, you can create real value. So the session for the 90 minutes, we're going through some brief introductions now. I'm going to give maybe 15, 20 minutes on internet and technology trends. It's going to be based on work just published 3 weeks ago by Mary Meeker. So Mary Meeker is at Kleiner Perkins, and Kleiner Perkins funded one of my companies. So I've stayed close with them. In fact, Greg knows Mary well. And so with her permission, I'm going to use some of her data to just share information on the internet and technology. And then Greg's going to give a great case study on BuzzFeed, which will be intriguing for everyone. I'll come back with just some lifetime lessons learned from the scars that I've accumulated from the 6 startup companies I've been involved with, and we'll open up for Q&A. I'd like to keep it pretty casual, so if you have questions that come up or say, wait a minute, please interrupt us, right? We're all family, so don't throw things, but do interrupt. Okay, so you heard some background. I mentioned, the fact that I grew up here in New Milford. In fact, Chris Adams reminded me that I drove a Volkswagen my senior year here, and I would park it down the street and we would deliver cases of beer. That was my, see, being a day student, these are extra responsibilities you had to have. And John will introduce Greg in a minute, but it'll be important for us to have audience participation. So I want to start it with a few polls. So if you graduated in the 50s, are you here? So 6, 8, 10. So you guys punch cards?
Yes.
Had punch cards, right? All right. In 60s or 70s, hands up. So these were the first in college. We were just starting to think about this thing, the computer, but there were monster machines you pushed around on with wheelbarrows. And then 80s, graduates in the 80s. So you went from punch cards to the first PCs, right? Did you have a Compaq 3? The first mobile computer was about this size. It was a Compaq 3. It was a green screen, 1981, and it was bigger than anyone's briefcase. Right? And then the 90s here. So you guys got mobile phones. Started getting really some nice. We went from modems to VPNs. And then how about millennials? And if you're a millennial, right? So, wow, you guys are smarter than anybody else in the room. We know that. So this is interesting. I did this, I was in San Francisco a couple weeks ago and did this, and it's a question kind of through time, but so keep your hand up if you have this. So do you have or use internet connectivity? Is there anybody that doesn't? Unless you've opted out to the green field, right? So all right, hands stay up. All right, do you use email? Everybody uses email. Are you on Facebook? So a couple hands went down. I see a woman I know is a mature adult who's on Facebook. I know who she is. All right, and then Snapchat. All right, about half dropped. But all the millennials, some of the 90s, I see a couple of guys that have my color hair. And then Instagram, so even more, that's good. And who tweets? So, yeah, Greg's out tweeting. And then who wants to admit to being on Tinder? Oh, there we go. 5. So, there's an evolution of apps, and you'll see in one of the PDFs some of how content has changed, and mobile's changed, and video's changed. We'll go through that. So let's start with the internet and technology trends. Can we pull that up? And you can still hear me okay? All right. So as I mentioned, Kleiner Perkins is, one of the blue blood VC companies, and I've done 6 venture-backed, high-growth tech companies. And this will be fuzzy math, but this is what I learned while I was here at Canterbury. Of those 6, 3 went IPO and 4 got bought. How did that? Is that too much hitting in the line of football? So actually, a couple of them went public and then got bought, and 1 was a total hit by pitch. So singles and doubles and home runs and a walk and a hit by pitch. So I've got lots of scars from those, and I'll share them. And Kleiner Perkins was one of the companies that that funded, I think it was my number 4 company. So I've stayed connected to them. And the guy who actually was on our board, a guy named Vinod Khosla, is maybe the 2nd or 3rd richest guy in the universe. He moved to India and started a multi-billion-dollar fund there called Khosla Ventures. But he was on our board, really smart guy, and luckily we had good guys helping us figure out how to make this happen. There's a lot of smart people at Kleiner. So I'm going to leverage a couple of these slides. Now, this particular presentation, you can go online and get. Go to Kleiner Perkins KPCB.com and you can download it. And so I'm going to hit a couple sections and I'll probably go fast. So slow down if you want, but I'm going to do this in 15 minutes, 20 slides, so there'll be 30 seconds. But say stop if you want to catch more. So I'm going to hit item 1, item 2, a little bit of 4, and close with 7. Is that okay? And you can pull the whole thing. It's only 196 pages. Did you bring a pillow? All right, so we'll talk internet trends first. So these are some cool numbers to look at, right? The growth of where we've been, and you guys have seen this, from 35 million internet users to 2.8 billion. Right, so if you do the math, USA in green, 10% of 2.8 billion, Canterbury alum, how much is that? 280 million. How many people in the US? 300. Yeah, 320, 340. So what's the percent that are on the internet of the US? Yeah, 80%. Right, so we're pretty saturated. 80% there. And from where we've been, that growth is 100x in just a few years. Everybody's on the internet. And mobile phones, from 80 million to 5.2 billion. How many mobile phones do you need to have? Who has more than one? Lots, yeah, look, right? I was meeting with the Yale CIO a few months ago, and we were talking about their internet use. He said, we average 7 devices, IP addresses per student. I'm like, 7? I'm thinking, okay, laptop, mobile. He goes, when you go the gaming machines, the desktop, the laptop, the 2 internet devices, plus printer, plus they now control the temperature of the refrigerator and their wine cooler. So it adds up. And it's all through the technology explosion. This is an interesting chart about the value of these technologies. So as we look as business people at finding opportunities, you're looking to create value. The last company I was with, we just sold to EMC for $1.2 billion. Right, that's creation of value. And these firms and their market cap, what's happened over the last 20 years, the 15 highest value firms on the left, 1995, to the 15 on the right, there's only one that repeats. Everybody know whose that is? It's Apple. Right, but look at all the folks that have died or expired, and what's happened to the value. It's another 100x. Creation of value over these last 20 years on the internet. So users up, mobile device up, value up. That's created a lot of opportunity. We talked about content and what's happening, right, through the generations that we've had. You know where you are, you know where you stand. Whether it's Twitch or Tinder and Snapchat and Instagram, where this has gone. Now, it's not ubiquitous. The internet hasn't penetrated everywhere. There's still lots of opportunities. And the game to creating value with technology is, where are those opportunities? So we're really only at the beginning. All right, so let me pop up to a little discussion about mobile. Bear with me while I page. So, mobile apps. you know the entire universe of advertising, it's billions of dollars. What percentage 10 years ago of that advertising would have been on a mobile device? Zero. Right, you guys got it. What percent do you think is there today? It's brand new medium. Total advertising spend.
20%.
Yeah, it's like 16 or 17% out of nowhere. And it's growing like this. And all the other advertising's like this. So the percentage share that's going for advertising, and how is that streaming to you? You don't even see it. It's subconscious almost, right? You go on any page and place you just words and an ad next to you. You're like, holy smokes. Big data, big brother, it's all hitting me back in my advertising. When you take your mobile device and you walk into a store and it gives you the special for the aisle that you're in, right? It's really amazing. Advertising, and of course, it only works if you have some place to buy. So on your phone, as you're using it, and we'll see a chart in a minute that says that all of us use it to make lots of decisions all day long. There's a place to buy. So advertise and buy. Huge opportunity in mobile devices. Let me go to a couple slides on business. What about business? Exactly. So consumer entrepreneurs go after personal passion. Enterprise entrepreneurs go after pain points.
Holy
Hey,
smokes.
Doug Myers, how are you? Oh shit! This is the heckling group from '75. I'm going over here. Whew.
Always late. Start from the beginning.
Yeah. Always late. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, Jack. All right. Thank you very much. I'm leaving now. But look, so what's happening with companies, right? The evolution of companies. So, I started my career at Exxon. It was the stodgiest business in the universe today, oil business, but at the time it was the largest corporation in the world, the highest value, 1979, when 4 years later I miraculously finished college. And the way that they did business and the way that you can do business today, I'll just flash through a couple of these slides. But email and messaging is now on Slack. Who uses Slack? Look, this is brand new. Greg's all over Slack. Your payments, going to Square and Stripe and PerPay and PayPal, all brand new. How do you do your online payments? Every single function and process that you can think of is going mobile, and it's places where you wouldn't imagine, right? Data overload goes to Domo. Who uses Domo? Couple? Yeah, look. You guys, right? It's part of your fabric every day. Gives you information to make decisions. Signatures, DocuSign, everything. So it's becoming this just-in-time, as you need it, society. So if you want a place to stay, you're in New York City and you're arriving at 4 o'clock, you can by 4:15 you can have your choice of 10 great places at a discounted rate, right, through probably 5 different websites as you're in the taxi from LaGuardia, right? and so everything, transactional sales, in-house support, everything online, mobile app. And in fact, not even landscaped anymore. Everything's portrait, so it fits on your iPhone 6 or your Samsung 6. So everything from benefits to Excel, right? It's all moving mobile, online, just in time for you to make decisions. Let's talk video for a second. More of this stuff. On the video side, so you know the explosion of video. I'm actually on the board of a company called Hangwith. So Hangwith was created to stream live video from, celebrities, actually is how it started. And it's turned into this viral situation where anybody with a phone can stream anything they're doing all day long to all your users, so your Twitter followers or whomever. So Terrell Owens, T.O., loves to, go as he does his daily workout. A person in Korea who's a political pundit does hers every day, and to her followers in Korea. She has more followers than Terrell Owens. or 50 Cent or Jared Leto or a bunch of other people who use that stream because she's created these followers, mobile streaming live video. And the user-generated video, so you and I creating video is more than all the celebrities. So we're actually creating more video than CBS and NBC and Fox, right? Millions and millions of videos per day. I think the number, it's like billions of bits per day. I mean, it's some ridiculous number. And so the views, there you go, 4 billion views of video per day, 4 billion. And so think about the impact of that. So you've got mobile impact, you've got video impact. Where's it all leading? So let's go to what the teenagers are telling us. So everybody wants to know what the 12 to 24-year-old kids think. Is anybody in that age group still? There's a couple. You guys are the key to the future. We think we are. We wish we were. So where is it going to go? What do people say? So it used to be Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. If you look at what's most important on the right, teens' most important social network in terms of just the last couple of years, from spring 2013 through spring 2015, look at Instagram, going from the teens up into 30, Twitter about flat, Facebook has fallen off to nothing, right? So where are the kids going? From Facebook to Instagram or Snapchat, right? So, and that's just in a couple of years. If Facebook was capped out its value maybe a couple of years ago. And so where are we going and what's coming up next? This is what tells you what's happening, right? What are the kids thinking? Never leaves my side. Who sleeps with their phone? I guess all you millennials, right? That's what it says. Never leaves my side, day or night. The first thing I do, I reach for my smartphone. 80% of teenagers. That's unbelievable. But that's where we're going. Everything comes right here, right away. And so, I post pictures on social media, 76% of kids do that. It happens every day. All right, let me go to one more view. Actually, it's interesting. We talked about, on demand. So all these industries are moving to minutes of getting bookings, food, delivery, travel, transportation, right? Who hasn't used Uber? Of course, I got introduced to Uber from my children. And they've saved me, hundreds of dollars every commute. But so this is where we are. Everything on mobile, instant video, right away. So how do you make money and how do you create a business in that environment? Well, we look at it on a global basis. Where would you go? If you could, go 95. That's where people are spending money over time. So look at the USA in blue. In 1820 at 2%, we capped in the 35 range of global GDP. So we had a third of the world's domestic production in the 1940s and 50s, and we're back down to 16%. And check out what's happened with China at 30% in red, 33% went down to 2 and back up to 16. But you see where the opportunities are. So now you're thinking, okay, how do I do a mobile play with video in China? Well, there's a lot of people putting money there, right? A lot of venture money going into China. Those are where opportunities come up. All right, let me go to a closing and then we'll go to a great BuzzFeed case study. So the closing, there's 6 or 8 bullets here I just want to touch real fast. And again, download this from the Kleiner Perkins website. So what's happening? Lots of changes, right? So in the job market, when you synthesize this data, job market's tough, but there are certainly opportunities. You have to be content rich and tech savvy. That's the reality of today's job market. What's going on with benefits? There's less and less coming from providers, and it's self-service. It's happening all over the world. What are the millennials thinking? Well, they have different expectations in work, right? I remember being on a panel not long ago, and we had a guy from the 50s, and me from the 70s, and a guy from the 90s, and a guy who had just graduated. We talked about what our expectancies of life were. The guy in the 50s said, 1 company for 50 years, retire, gold watch, go. That was the old way. I was like, all right, maybe 5 or 6 companies, retire, poor, go. Right? The last guy said, well, I've already started 3 companies, and he was still in college. Right? So this is how that's shaping different ways of thinking. Connectivity and work we've touched a little bit on. The last couple bullets here, marketplaces stand to continue to benefit consumers. That's that on-demand thinking. And then the last bullet, the impact of social media is just beyond comprehension. And I'll close with a quick story and I'll turn it over to Greg. In fact, if you want to come pull up Greg's stuff. So one of the companies we sold to IBM. So I spent a number of years at IBM. And a woman became the CEO there. Her name is Ginny Rometty. And for the senior executives, one of the things that Ginny measured every month, we published this, was how many followers you had on Twitter, how many social media posts you had. There was a whole series of metrics for IBM executives on social presence. And you had to play. You had to be out there. So she was pushing the firm in the new millennial. All right, let me turn it over to John to introduce Greg. Thank you. I'll see you all in a minute. I did. Yeah.
Great stuff there. Doubling and doubling, so you better adapt or not. Our next speaker is Greg Coleman, my good buddy. Class of 72, he's president of BuzzFeed. All of you with hair or lack of hair like me may not know what BuzzFeed is, but everybody else in this room certainly knows about it, uses it, and some of them are addicted to it. Greg gave a presentation to the students here about a month and a half ago on BuzzFeed and his story, and it was the highlight of the year for a lot of people. It got fabulous feedback, and he'll give us some of that again today. His directive at BuzzFeed is to scale social advertising globally and to expand the mobile video and advertising products. Before BuzzFeed, he was president of an advertising tech company called Criteo, which he took public 2 years ago. He previously held roles as President Chief Revenue Officer at Huffington Post, also acquired. Executive Vice President of Global Sales at Yahoo, also acquired. There is a trend here. He's President of Platform A at AOL and former Senior VP of Reader's Digest Association. That's when Greg and I first met. He was on the board, and he was actually President of Reader's Digest, the publication, and if there's anything more low-tech than that publication, I can't imagine what it was, and more of something like my grandfather's product was Reader's Digest, and now he's at the cutting edge of technology and has been at the cutting edge for a decade and a half. Anyway, he holds a BS in Business Administration from Georgetown, attended Business Administration program at NYU, and he's an adjunct professor. He teaches technology at the University of NYU Business School, and I think it's either their most popular course or their second most popular course, but yet he teaches this as a avocation and giving back, and I think it's a terrific thing. I know he gets a big kick out of it. The students like it even more. He's a Canterbury person. His family, he has 4 brothers. His son, Ben, a nephew, and a stepsister all attended the school, so this is a serious Canterbury alum. And Greg, thank you so much.
Okay, good. Thank you. Is that, okay, do I need this? No. Do I? Okay, hi. I only have like 3 of my classmates that showed up, so our class sucks. It's terrible. When I came here a month and a half ago, and I did speak to the students, I started off by asking them, how many of you are about to flunk out of Canterbury because you're spending too much time on BuzzFeed? And the whole student body's hand went up. Because, and actually, just to show of hands, how many of you here spend some time on BuzzFeed, just so I can get a sense? Okay, so pretty good amount. I'm going to show you some statistics up here, but first, just to relate back to Canterbury, it's great to come back. It's great to have the chance to talk to everybody. Canterbury was really good to me. I was here for 4 years, lived on campus all 4, and I would say that I was the kind of person that benefited probably the most, or I would be in that league of people that benefited the most. I certainly was not at the top of my class. I was solidly in the maybe 3rd quartile, maybe I'm lying, maybe it was even lower than that. But the school was amazing in that it nurtured me, it did not let me get off of their radar screen, and it made sure that I focused to the best of my ability. And one of the most memorable letters that I've ever seen was a letter that my father sent to Walter Sheehan, who was the headmaster of Canterbury. And it read like this, after my freshman year of high school. Dear Walter, thank you so much for the time that we spent. I appreciate talking to you about my son, Gregory. I just finished talking to him, and he promises over the summer to spend some time on his studies and to read all the books and to really try much harder next year. Sincerely, Greg Coleman. P.S. enclosed is a check for the annual fund. Now, I can't make it up. So there was graft going on, because I should have been kicked out, I'm quite sure, but somehow, must have been a large check. We'll have to see. But just going back to the school, with many members of my family graduating from here, including a son, it's great to come back, and it's great to see 100 years, and it's great to see old friends, including upperclassmen that would beat the crap out of me in Middlehouse when I wasn't supposed to be up there. So, John gave you a background on some of the things that I've done, but I did get into the media business right after I graduated from Georgetown and then went to NYU. The media business has always been really interesting to me, but the thing that I found over the past few years, so the commentary was that I worked at Reader's Digest. I did. I was there for 10 years, and coming up from New York City today, I passed the bucolic, large town of Chappaqua, where Reader's Digest is, and you could see the big building as you go along the highway. Reader's Digest has gone bankrupt twice in the last probably 7 years. And it's an example of a company that was at the forefront of publishing. Reader's Digest was the largest magazine in the world. It was a massive company with revenues in excess of $5 billion, having cash of over $4 billion in the bank in the mid-1990s. And the company did not change with the times. Instead of investing in new media, it bought back its own stock and ultimately did not progress to where things would go. And my friends would tease me, one in particular who had said, oh, Reader's Digest, isn't that magazine for old people and their parents? And I'm like, oh shit, thanks. You know, that makes me feel really good. That's where I work, that's where I make a living. But what happened to me in the year 2000, at the end of the year 2000, I started to have conversations with Yahoo. And I lost my mind in that when the conversation started, and this is with Jerry Yang, who was the founder, who wanted somebody from the old world that knew business, and the internet had just blown up in 1999, wanted somebody to come in with a business mind to say, let's figure out how this business model could work. So I made the change, and I moved to California, and it certainly changed my life. So going from being the oldest, as John said, oldest of old media, to kind of the new thing was pretty interesting, but the internet had blown up. Remember 1999, everything collapsed, so we had to figure out what to do. And then you heard, I've been in a couple of companies since then. The thing John did not mention is I was at AOL. I was at AOL for 10 weeks, and then I was fired for stealing. No, I didn't steal. I was fired because a new person came in and wanted to bring his whole team in. And I had a 3-year contract, so I'm like, kick my ass out of here. That's fine, I'll go. But in terms of looking at change, and for those of you that are still trying to make career decisions, and I wind up talking like this with my students at NYU, looking to make career decisions, you clearly need to understand where the puck is going and what's going on. So in my lifetime, I've never been a founder of a company. I've not. I've been somebody that's been able to find and figure out who the smartest person in the room is and who's going to do the innovation, and I hitchhike, and I've been really lucky by being able to find those people. So now I wind up at BuzzFeed, and right here, I live in the intersection of technology and content. That's where I live. BuzzFeed is far more of a technology company than it is a content company. Might surprise you because you're up on your cell phone, I'm looking at you, and you're watching and you're laughing and you're sharing some stuff with your friends. The reason that we can do that is because we have a continual feedback loop where we understand what the users are looking for and we understand what the individuals are looking for right now. So the intersection of technology and content, I'm going to put up some slides in a second. We could not do what we're doing now just by putting up cool content. So let me just see if this works. So in terms of monthly unique visitors, just to give you a sense of the growth, so from January in 2013, we've grown from 24 million people coming to our site to 220 million. So the growth has been unprecedented, and people are flocking and people are sharing the stories. In terms of mobile apps, we've grown 10x since 2013. And in terms of video views, so BuzzFeed, if you watch us in the next couple of years, the video part of our business is going to be the largest part of what we do, and we have studios in California and we produce our own content, but we've gone from 17 million views 2.5 years ago in the beginning of 13 to today, even though it's not exactly up to, as of last month, we're at 1.5 billion views per month. So the scale of what we've been able to do is crazy. But we've also understood through technology what the marketplace wants, what the users want, and I'm going to give you some examples of this in a little while. So the in-house, I'm not going to go in great length here, but we have a content management system. So if you're an editor at BuzzFeed and you're doing a story, you get a dashboard and you have all of this content that allows you to take a look at what that unit is going to be looking like on a cell phone, and then how it will look on Facebook, on Pinterest, on Twitter. An editor has an entire dashboard that will give them the sense of how that content is going to appear, because if you try to play the same song across all social media outlets, it's just not going to work. So of the gigantic number of views that we get, 220 million, 75% of them are not from people coming to our site. 75% of the traffic come from people that are out there looking at Facebook, looking at Pinterest, looking at Twitter. We are going where our users are. Most publishers today try to drive traffic to their website. We think completely different. We push our traffic out into the social sphere where the millennials are spending their time. Today, we reach 60% of all millennials in the United States, and that provides an amazing target for marketers who consider that millennial team a very, very important part. It's also great to know that when we started the company, before I got there, when the founders started, they never said, oh, let's build a cool website that will attract millennials and then we can go out and sell advertising. We just never did that. Content will find the audience. And for those people that try to put content on steroids so that they can go out and sell advertising are generally doomed to failure, because it doesn't work that way. It has to be natural and organic, and it has to be what people want. So I'll go here. So I'll give you a couple of examples. In the world of social, we've been able to create what we call a swarm, where we take every social lever, and I'll show you some fun examples of what we've been able to do. So we did an interview with our president a couple of months ago, and what we decided to do was we took a look at all of the things that he did, and we went down to Washington, D.C., and all of his people at the White House did not want him to be interviewed by BuzzFeed, to do the video that I'm about to show you. They just didn't know what we were going to do. They didn't know if his opinions were going to be, if the polls were going to drop, as if they could have dropped further at that time. But at any rate, they allowed us in, and he wanted to sell his health care package. That was the deal. BuzzFeed came in and we said, we think we can do it, but we're going to do it differently than you standing in front of a camera telling the American public, this is why you need to buy our new health insurance. And this is what we did.
Deadline for signing up for health insurance is February at Group.
Like any other Wednesday. Wednesday.
February and February 15th. February 15th. In many cases, you can get health insurance for less than $100 a month. Just go to healthcare.gov. Figure out how to sign up. February 15th.
Thanks, Obama. Thanks, Obama.
That's pretty good.
Down by one. He gets it. Mr. President?
Can I live?
You do you.
Oh, man. All right.
So this video, I'll show you some stats in a second. The people in the White House and the PR team, they came back to us 2 days later, and the president's approval ratings actually went up 1.5 points the day after that. And you'll see in a second, in about 36 hours, we had 50 million views of this, and I'll show you how that was done. It just didn't happen because it was a cool video. But what we did was we immediately uploaded it to Facebook's video player and got huge tonnage there. We then published this as a post on BuzzFeed. We then sent it out as a newsletter. We then experimented with our distributed team, and we put out lots of content in real time. We then got a ton of press around this interview with the president. I'll go back. That was not his dress, I promise you. So in terms of generating traffic in this day and age, now if I was at Reader's Digest, we would have had 15 pages on the president, and it would have been listed the reasons why you should sign up for health care, and it would have, no one would have seen that article. It just wouldn't have got out because it's not that interesting. So the thought that we have, whether it's in writing the posts or in doing video, is how do we capture the imagination? But to drive the kinds of views that I showed you, you can't do it without technology at the center. Another thing happened, and you see this. So how many of you saw this dress? Okay, everybody did. And what happened with this is we did not create the dress. Somebody posted this dress on the BuzzFeed's Tumblr page. Somebody posted it, and one of our editors said, wow, isn't this cool? And we put it up. We put it up on our site, and then all of a sudden the editorial team saw it start to move, and we started to post it all over the world in 24 hours, we had 41 million views from every country around the globe. The morning that we posted this, I was at dinner with my wife, and we're sitting chatting. The couple to the left of us was arguing about the dress, and the couple to the right. And I'm like, holy shit, I work at this company that is really impacting people. We couldn't have done it without the technology, with the feedback loop, that it was interesting, and to get a team behind it. So when you have something like this happen, where people in Germany are going crazy and people in Australia are going nuts over this same debate, you know you're onto something, and it's why we drove traffic. We have a question. Yes?
What is the dress?
Obviously, it's gold and white. What's that? Okay, it's black and blue. So I don't really know the answer. I just see it the way I do. Don Roberts, how are you? Yeah. Oh, wow. What a great coach. Come on, give it up. So amazing. Don Roberts, great to have you back. You look younger than when I last saw you. Holy crap, I bet you could beat me up still, too. So again, we did all kinds of things from a PR standpoint around the dress that created a big deal, including, we didn't do this, but on SNL, they had a very, very funny skit around it. So it was one of those things that took off, and we have the opportunity to grab it, to see what's happening. So in terms of our business model, all of the money that we make comes from advertising. So a year ago, we had a firm that Keith knows well called Andreessen Horowitz. They invested $50 million in our company. They gave us, at that time, an $850 million valuation. The company is twice that size now since they made the investment. But the fuel for our revenue is all from advertising. Everything we do is socially driven and is native advertising, meaning I do not take a regular TV commercial. Everything we do, we have to run, we have to produce, and we make it around stories. We tell stories around brands. In my office, we have 80 people that do nothing other than write sponsored posts, stories for brands that really resonate. And in terms of some of the things that we're doing right now, I'll just go through here. That's Spock doing a Vulcan mind meld. He's not doing anything weird. He's trying to understand what is on the minds of the millennials, and this is what we bring to the party. So whether we go to Walmart and see, Walmart, a Fortune 1 company, 12 kids who deserve to get what they want for the holidays, it could have been a regular Walmart ad that would put everybody to sleep, but we drove a lot of traffic for them. And in terms of evergreen programs, in terms of things that we do for Barbie, which Barbie doll are you? 1 million views. It was shared like crazy for people that use that doll. And in terms of Monopoly, we did an awful lot of stuff there. I'll just show you a little clip. This is an ad, by the way.
You do realize that Jacob hasn't been particularly nice to you in previous years. I think he built those hotels there for a reason, Emily. To destroy you.
That's what I hear, Chief.
So I'm going to go past that, but in terms of not doing a 30-second TV spot, but in terms of producing creative that resonates, all of the videos that you see from BuzzFeed are not found on BuzzFeed. They're found either on YouTube or Facebook, because that's where our users are. That's where they're consuming content. And 75% of the consumption of our videos and all of our content is on mobile devices. 75% of everything we do is on handheld. So for those of you that are hardcore readers, where do you read your BuzzFeed? You read it and watch it on your handheld device. We have no other choice because that's where it is. We think mobile first all of the time. So an interesting thing that's happened, a phenomenon, in that in terms of sharing, social sharing is now outpacing search and search engine optimization. It's a big driver of where users are spending their time today. So the engagement of people that share are very high. I'm not going to take you through that, but users who receive the content through sharing are even more engaged. So if you share an ad with a friend, it's going to matter more, and advertisers care about that. So back to video, I mentioned before the growth right now to 1.5 billion views per month. I'll give you an example of another ad.
Do you like that band, Amika? Yeah. What's your favorite song? They're all really good. Do you really know them? Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ever gonna go to college to become a lawyer or a doctor. What are you talking about? You are very smart and very driven.
Hey, I was up. That's weird. I saw Jameson the other day. He's really cute, right?
What's that?
He's attractive. Look at the TV with two likes. Congratulations. Yeah, that's cute. Yeah. Fun.
So you just saw a commercial for Clean and Clear, which was engaging and surprised you. And the statistics behind that ad that you saw in terms of retention and intention to purchase were off the charts. But it was not a 30-second TV commercial, which is why it worked so well. So we got 4 million shares, 4.4 million people shared the ad. So from a client standpoint, they couldn't have been any more happier. They paid for 1 million views, and they got 4 million. Question?
Greg, did you create that content in-house, or did that come?
Did I personally create it? I do everything in the whole company. So we create everything. We write it, we script it, we produce it. We have a team of 200 out in Los Angeles that produce between 70 and 80 short-form videos a week. So we have a big factory. We're looking for space right now, and we're now taking the video operation internationally. We're in 13 countries outside of the United States. So in order to do what you do, an ad agency doesn't know how to do this. It's just very different. Do you come from that world?
Yeah. So I was just saying, we run into that issue all the time.
What do you do?
It's a sports media company, so we distribute content and advertising across television screens and stadiums and arenas.
Got it.
So great content like that we're always looking for, and it usually comes from the agency side, and it's so static and not really sticky, and so that's really unique.
Right.
I was going to ask if agencies don't threaten that you are...
Agencies are scared to crap heaven because of what we do, but they see this. So you have media buying agencies that buy from us, but the ad agencies themselves, because they are not technology driven, it's hard for them to get the feedback to be able to deliver the kind of content that you have there. So there are lots of great agencies that are doing great work. Agencies still have a great purpose, but in terms of getting into the minds of mostly millennials, you can't show them a regular ad. You're dead. You have to figure out how to get into their mind in order to talk to them. Otherwise, you can't. Yes?
So you say that they paid for 1 million shares and they got the 4.4. Is that how you sell to brands and agencies?
Today, that's how we do it, but we're getting pretty good at this. So sooner or later, we're going to start charging. We're going to start charging not on a cost per thousand, but on a cost per view. So that's coming up right now. But I'm delighted to be able to give clients lots and lots of excess value today. It's just building great awareness for us. Yes?
Out of curiosity, what does
it cost for $1 million?
$250,000 for us to produce it, completely turnkey it. We work with the client and we get their brief and we go back and forth like an agency, and then they sometimes have to just trust us because they just don't see it. Where we hit a wall sometimes is if the CEO or the top person would like the more mundane 30-second spots and they're afraid to step out. But the research will prove it over and over again. If you're trying to reach millennials, you can't do it conventionally. You'll get drowned right out. Yes?
So how do views necessarily translate to real commerce? In other words, it's entertaining video. The advertisers, all you had was a logo at the end to connect it to anything. How do you really verify the effectiveness for the advertiser?
Yeah, it's great. It's a great question because what Doug is asking is, we can put entertaining stuff out there, but how is it validated? How do clients know? So the back-end research with third-party research companies in terms of brand awareness, brand lift, intention to purchase, we have to have all of that, and they have to scream positive in order for somebody to renew with a campaign like that. So can you break through? And I'm going to show in a little bit, I'm going to just close by showing you like our world record holder ad that traveled more than anybody else that's not an ad. Kevin.
So is all your content coming out of California?
All of the video content today is coming out of California, but we're just opening a big office in Japan in 2 months. Australia is getting their first video team. The UK will get one in the first quarter of 2016. So it has to be everywhere, but it's still fairly scalable for other English-speaking countries out of LA.
But for example, it's not regional. I mean, something that's going on in New England, for example, are you guys picking that up and turning that into content?
So where are you from?
Denver.
Oh, Denver.
That's
Denver. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm sorry. It was a layup. So
That was low hanging.
that was like, wow, man, what a great question. What was it again? Sorry, Kevin.
so just what something happens in New England? Are you guys picking up that content? Or?
If it's relative. So we've done a lot of ads for London, for the UK. We have English-speaking actors. That's really what it takes. So in terms of if a certain bit of creative needs to be filmed up in New England, occasionally we'll do that. But our magic is that we have extremely low-cost production that uses the same people, different sets, all on the same lot that allows us to publish between 70 and 80 pieces of short-form content a month. Okay? Yes, Chip.
Especially for the younger people here who are thinking startup and beginning, how accessible, without the budgets that the larger brands have, is BuzzFeed going to become to allow them to share in the same aggregation, the same distribution?
Yeah, it's pretty tough. So today, unless you're willing to start by spending for a post, which is not video, $100,000, we can't work with you right now. So we're working on lower touch solutions, but we have lots of demand from a lot of really big brands, so we have to dive in, and we can't deal with everybody. If somebody wants to spend $30,000, we literally have to say no, or $50,000, we have to say no. Okay? Yes, in the back.
I've read some concerns about native advertising and how it can be kind of a little bit manipulative, especially if it's like a scientific product and they're not really aware that it's an advertisement. And it doesn't really seem like you guys have run into that, but because you're making like entertaining kind of videos. But I was wondering if you ever kind of think about that, and if you work on kind of trying to make it really clear that this is an advertisement.
So the secret to us is we are really Scientologists, and everything we do is designed to bring you in. We don't care about the business. Ultimately, we want you. So actually, we don't get that at all. So native advertising is still different, but going back to the great question that was asked a little while ago, if it resonates, if it changes, if it gets people to want to buy that product, that's what the client's looking for. And that is something that we continue to have to prove to ourselves. Yeah.
Isn't there a fine line, though? I mean, I get the impression that the young audience, the youthful audience, is more steeled against being manipulated.
Absolutely.
Tune out, right? So there's a fine line.
They are. So, which is why in the ads that you saw, in-your-face branding is not going to work. Give me a treat. Make me feel good. Provoke me, like that clearance sale commercial. And then, oh, it's brought to you by that. I feel better about you. I'm going to buy your product because I know what you make. So it's a very fine line. And quite honestly, when I got to the company, I asked exactly what you did. Does this stuff work? And it does. And we're learning more about the ability to lift a brand today. So do people share it? Of course. But does it work for brand advertisers in the way you're asking? Yeah, we've got to do that. Yes?
You only talk about video, but didn't you guys start doing lists? And,
yeah, so
a listicle?
Yeah, I show the videos because I figured everybody would be bored as hell by about now. So I thought I'd put a little sight, sound, and motion. So most of the advertising today is still your sponsored posts, whether it's lists or quizzes or things that we put together for the advertiser. But in this quarter, 40% of our ad revenue was from video. 40 right now, and next year it'll be well in excess of 50%. The demand is massive for that. Okay, oh, yes?
How much of your video is the branded content versus the BuzzFeed's own created content, would you say?
Right now, we outproduce massively on our editorial content. So we're just really getting going in the branded space. So I would say probably a ratio of about 1 to 15 right now. Okay, yes?
What's next? I mean, are you going to be competing with like a Vice in terms of distribution of content, different screens, connected TV over the top to reach the millennials?
So I'll tell you, it's a wonderful question because at BuzzFeed, what's next is always on our mind. We're engaged right now with 3 of the largest media companies you can imagine, and I can't tell you their names. But what they want to know is how they can use our feedback loop, our test and learn, our technology to help them develop characters, help them develop pilots. So we've just begun working with 3 big ones to help the conventional media companies. So if you're a TV company today and you're coming up to the fall season, you make 15 pilots and you pray one sticks. That is terrible. And it's killed everybody for a while. And you have all these really bright, creative people. We can help them before you make the pilot to understand what's resonating, what's happening. So we expect to be a major player in television, in movies. I mean, who knew we were going to be a big player in the video? No one knew a year ago that it was going to take off like this. So we're now experimenting, but we don't want to go down that road on our own. So we have lots of partners that are dying to understand what we know about these millennials and the science behind it. What's the math and science behind the content?
But so so in terms of the old media, so now we think about broadcast networks. They're not following it.
They're screwed.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's a hard model. I love TV. TV's not going to die, but it's really a hard model. And as the millennials, the peak time that people are spending watching BuzzFeed videos is directly in what used to be called primetime television. And right now, you don't need an ad blocker. If somebody's watching TV, they just pick up their phone and they watch something or engage in something. So the world is changing, and a lot of people in the traditional media companies are waiting for them they're waiting to retire, so it's somebody else's problem. And they're losing ground. It's really hard. It's not easy. Okay? Well, okay, yes?
How do you sift through all the data, like algorithms or?
So yeah, so we have 175 people in our technology team, and we have a stack of 10 different areas that we work that are all linked and connected. So when I said we are a technology company, from the very beginning, we needed our own proprietary data and analytics in which to be able to sift through these billions and billions of terabytes of data that we get every day. Okay, yes, well, I'll take one more. Okay, 2 more. Yeah.
Publishing warrior, where do you see traditional media going, and when, or I should say, I believe it'll die, but if you do, when?
Yeah, so I don't think traditional media is going to just die, but the problem that they have is when you try to hold on to your analog dollar, when you should be investing that into where the puck is going, into the new world, A lot of people really have a great amount of difficulty letting go, getting hurt in the short term to build yourself up. And the second thing is, it's really not in a traditional person's DNA. You know, I can sit up here and talk about my great company. I didn't start this company. I didn't start it. I could never have started it on my own. I was smart enough to get to be good friends with the founder who asked me to come over. Hey, relationships matter. Don't give me a break. But I couldn't do it myself. I can talk about it. I'm honest. I couldn't do it. So the DNA that's required to look at the world differently, hey, I left Yahoo in 2008, pretty progressive company. Yahoo is old news right now because they didn't innovate. They didn't get off the planet Krypton. They didn't get into video. They didn't get into mobile. They didn't get into video, to all kinds of other things as fast as they should have gotten into it. It just didn't happen. So brands today in the digital world can atrophy faster than the old brands back in the old days used to be able to. Things are moving fast. Keith put up some slides before that talked to you about how quickly things are changing. It's like, holy crap, it's moving all of the time. So you have to be always on looking and understanding and seeing what's going on. And you look at some of the acquisitions that have made. I was in the war room when at Yahoo we met with a 21-year-old Mark Zuckerberg, and we flashed $1 billion, and he owned more than 50% of the company. And to see that guy come back, and he said, I won $1.1 billion, and we're like, oh my God. And we went to the board, and the board said yes, and he came back and he said, we are not for sale. And the question is, would Yahoo have screwed up a Facebook? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. But the fact of the matter is, we knew then that we needed to do some things differently, and we really tried to acquire that. We did make a great purchase. We bought 40% of Alibaba for $1 billion back 7 years ago. So some things can work, but standing still, you know, nobody saw Snapchat coming. I love the hands, Keith, when you asked that question. Nobody saw Snapchat coming, and it's now colossal, and it's where all of the millennials are spending time. One more question. Michael, I know you had that.
Do you still have the pole vault record of Canada?
I do. So it's over 40 years old. Thank you so much. Wow. Yeah, that's Michael. Thank you for that question. But yes, I do. How many other people own school records? I thought so. Okay, so just to wrap this up, I want to give you this. This is the last case study that I'll give you. Then I'll turn it back to Keith. But in terms of an ad, here's an ad that was shared by 21 million people.
Dear Kitten, since I have hissed you the customary 437 times, it is now my duty as the head of the household to begrudgingly welcome you. Perhaps you are here to replace me, but I must do my duty and educate you on your new surroundings, as Maximilian once did for me. Rest in peace. This room here is basically a crapshoot. Either you get the betting of your life, and I mean two hands, like you don't even know what's going on, or they just lie there and don't do anything for hours. It's weird. Oh, and I should also point out, on special occasions they will leave the underwear drawer open to signal their appreciation of me. Just to be clear, it's my spot. It's perfect in there. It's like sleeping surrounded by underwear. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Dear Kitten, I remember when I could fit in a shoe. There's nothing like it. Being engulfed in 360 degrees of foot smell. Enjoy it while you can. Dear Kitten, because you are so small, you cannot jump, which is sad. Sad for you, but eventually you will, and you will find the places that I refer to as up. This will come in handy, especially around the human larva, which I know smells like milk, but can be a bit grabby. Dear Kitten, you should be aware that there are two kinds of food. The first is sort of a dehydrated brown niblet. I think they gave us these because they're training us to be astronauts. Just a guess. The second kind is wet food. It is so special they keep it in little armored metal casings. There's no claws in the pantry. With no claws to speak of, the humans can somehow open them. It's like some dark magic. Dear kitten, I should warn you of the monster known as vacuum. It can eat and yell at the same time. And I've seen it eat everything. Seriously, like a paperclip and 2 cat toys. Didn't even flinch. To hide from vacuum, you may use the curtains of invisibility. Oh yeah, you're good. Good hiding. Oh boy. Dear kitten, one final note. Once in a while you might see a little red dot. I'm going to tell you this right now. It is real, and it can be caught. I held it for a full minute, but when I lifted my paws, it was gone. So kitten, welcome to the household. You'll do just fine.
So in the test and learn world, that's the 5th ad that we've done with Purina. The first one was second one was better, we learned a lot. The third one really was awesome, 4th, and then 5th, to a point where 2 years ago, Purina was spending $500,000 with us. This year, they're in a second half fiscal, they're on track to spend $25 million with us, simply because this worked. All of their internal metrics at Purina, back to your question, went off the charts in terms of people wanting to buy wet cat food, Purina's wet cat food. And I mean, it's like, holy cow, how can you make selling cat food creative? I never would have guessed it. I don't know. But I was watching everybody's reaction. That was an ad, right? And ads aren't supposed to do that. But in order to attract and retain attention, you have to do things differently, and old models are just not going to work the way that they did. So I think that for me, I'll get going. So that's the number of shares that happened. And then in terms of brand lift, back to the point, they had a 57.8% brand lift across the country with this series of ads that ran out. Okay, so I will end there, and Keith, I'll give it back to you. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go mic-less. Turn it off. Yeah. Thank you. All right, we'll do awesome case study, right? We'll do a couple minutes on lifetime lessons learned. So if you're from the 70s and you vaguely remember it, it's proof that you were there. And if you are in my age group, you do things in 3s because you can't remember 4. And you try to line them up so they start with the same letter, you got a better shot. So lifetime lessons learned, we'll start with mantras, go to maxims, and end with musings. You see got it, okay. So what are the mantras? First, and we'll match these to the Canterbury values, but it's a funny thing. I left Canterbury in 75, I left Duke in 79, so I've been in the work world for 36 years. I've had 27 jobs. I really suck at this stuff. 27 jobs, 36 years, it's like 15 months a piece. But that's actually was by design. And the learnings in my first job, I was actually taught how to come in, figure out what mountain you want to climb, put a team together, and assess a strategy to climb that mountain, pick the route and the gear, and then make sure everybody wants to, in fact, climb the mountain, and then climb the mountain. And if you could do that strategy in the first 60 days, then actually go climb the mountain in the first year, then whatever company you're working with said, good, go climb this next mountain. And so you go from job to job to job to job. And that's actually how I've kind of bumped along to do 8 technology companies, including IBM and Exxon, 2 of the largest in the world. and these startup companies. This is how it's been. But so these mantras and the maxims and musings are from all those learnings, lots of great mentors who have trained me. So the first, to be humble. I think an example, I'll give a couple examples to this, but certainly the Canterbury values of respect and compassion. But we sold a company, a little tiny company, to IBM for a couple $100 million. It was a small company. And we thought we were big and bad. And at the time, I was running worldwide sales for this company. It was about $100 million in revenue. And IBM paid a lot of money for us. They brought us in, and they said, all right, go forth and do good in all this IBM culture. And we thought we were so smart that we wouldn't need to use the IBM culture. We just kept doing what we kept doing. And companies, when they buy you, they put together a business case, right, to justify and get a return on investment for the money they just paid. And so the first quarter after we'd been there, and they asked us how we did kind of on our own, well, we hadn't sold anything. Right? And we were a little embarrassed. We said, no, we'll do better, we'll do better. And we continued to ignore the IBM machinery, and we tried to do it on our own. And the second quarter came, and the board of IBM looked at us and said, what did you do? And we had to say, well, we haven't sold anything again. So this whole thing about, we thought we knew it all. We didn't know anything. We didn't know enough to take advantage of the IBM machine. So the idea of being humble and continuously learning, right? If the Reader's Digest had continuously learned, they could be BuzzFeed. Right? So be humble. Be helpful in the mantras. What I've seen and learned is that paying it forward is what it's all about, right? Be a mentor, be an advisor, come speak at reunions, represent your class, be a class agent, raise money for the school, continuously being helpful. It's just great karma, and it comes back 1,000-fold. And the last thing, being hungry, in terms of a mantra, you know, it's about a bit about self-reliance, but you know, you want to stay ever hungry, right? I was with one company. It was in the internet bubble. Some of you, I think everyone was alive, right, when that bubble happened, 2000, Y2K. We thought the world would end. Well, I was running a company called Breakaway Solutions. We were just about to go public. And we went public at $12 a share. The stock in the first month went to 173. Did anybody live through that time? A couple of guys, right? From 12 to 173. So every executive is worth tens of millions of dollars. And yet we knew that it wouldn't last. I wish it had, but it wouldn't, and it didn't. And the stock went to $1. And it went up like this, and it went down faster. And when they were coming to delist us from NASDAQ, right? So you got to stay hungry, stay humble, and be helpful. Those are my mantras. In terms of maxims, when I mentor, and whether I'm on the board or even at the companies that I go to work for, there's three things that I have learned, I guess, and I try to preach and teach and take advice myself. But the first is to know your gifts, right? So from Corinthians, from Acts, whether it's a spiritual gift or a talent that you might have, understand what your gifts are and follow that passion. I'll share a quick story. My son, my oldest son now, lives in Philadelphia, but when he finished, when he went to school, he went to Lafayette, and so in Pennsylvania, but whenever I went to visit him, he either seemed to be playing Nintendo, or if I'd call and say, hey, I'm coming down for a weekend, he'd say, oh, I'm going to Atlantic City. So as far as I could tell, he was either at the crap table or on PlayStation. And when he got to be a senior, I said, what exactly are you going to do with this for your career? And he said, Dad, I have it all planned out. So I went to his fraternity house, and I watched what he's doing. He's playing with these machines. He had multiple screens in front of him. I thought, what the heck could he do with that, right? So a couple months later, he's a derivatives trader at Deutsche Bank in Manhattan. And I went to his office there, and he was doing the exact same thing. He had 3 screens in front of him. He's trading derivatives, right? It was his passion. And so he took being at a craps table and PlayStation and parlayed that into, and he taught me that you got to follow your passion. The second bullet point here in terms of maxims is you are your own CEO, right? You're your brand. Now, what does that mean? in today's world, your brand, your online image, your Facebook, Pinterest, tweets, hashtag is all live. Anybody can look up everything about you, including your past. They can probably predict where you're going to be, but that's your image. That's your brand. You are your own CEO. You need to take that seriously, right? So your postings and your pictures and all that stuff, that's you and your brand. And your value is that value of that brand. Your continuous education, that continuous learning. So as Greg has gone from spot to spot in his career, he's continuously learning. His brand now has value based on those experiences. He's the CEO of his own business. Every day when he walks into the office, as are we all. You have to take that mindset. And if you do take that mindset, the last point becomes it takes a village. When I mentor young people, I say to them, if you're the CEO of your own company, you need a board of directors, you need a board of advisors, you need a network to help you steer through. And the young people who have embraced that, they are so successful because they take advice from their minister, preacher, smart uncle, brother, professor, bring that together and make decisions on their career and life. The CEO thinking, the village thinking. This has been really successful for a lot of people. So I would encourage you to embrace that. And the last thing, quick musings. I mentioned the first 90 days, setting that strategy and executing. What's the saying that even a poor strategy well executed will outdo a great strategy poorly executed. So you have to go execute. And the way you execute is people, process, and technology. What's the most important part of that? Everybody knows that, right? Even people I've fired are willing to come back and work with me again because they know that I care about people. And so it's part of that Canterbury values, caring about people. It's really critical. And lastly, just a closing of Thanksgiving. Again, to say thank you to you guys, to Greg, to Glenn, to John, to the team here, and to Canterbury. That's our time. We'll open it up for questions. Thank you. Fire away.
If you two had a half hour with a board of trustees here, what advice would you give them in maybe changing the way they teach, changing the way things are here? Just how would you answer both? How would you advise them?
So, what I would say is I think I'm going to...
Greg, could you please repeat the questions? Because
yeah, so the question was if we were on the board, if we wanted to advise Canterbury what we wanted to do, what they should do. I think clearly something from my lens, from the technology side, we should step up what we're doing as a company. We should be having whole curriculums around coding. We should be much more tech savvy than we are right now. And I talked with Tom Sheehy, I've talked with Bob Steers about this, so I'm getting involved with them. I'm not on the board, I can't do it right now. But in terms of taking it a step up, you get two things. You get a great education, but you also want to get a magnet to attract the best and the brightest to want to come to a place that has something outstanding in the technology world. That would be the one thing I would add. Pete?
Yeah, there's no way to be qualified to give advice like that. But look, Canterbury's got tremendous legacy and tremendous value. It's the iteration, it's the next steps that you're asking about. And so where's the world going and how do you bring that into academics and how do you challenge the students here to go? Longer than we probably have, but it's great that we're asking the question. Go ahead.
I have a question for both of you, actually. What insights do you have about the commonality in the successes and failures you've experienced professionally?
When I, is this on? Is it good? There you go. Better? Oh, there you go. When, for me personally, I think...
Repeat the questions.
Yeah, the question was a commonality of success and failures, what you've learned, perhaps. I know for me, if I held on to those values and follow those maxims and mantras, I do better than when I don't. I think, it's really about values. So following those values, you'll be successful. For me, that's what I found. When I veer, human failings, trouble, which my classmates can attest to.
Yeah, so again, you learn more from your failures. I got up here to talk to you about a lot of cool stuff that I did, but also a lot of bumps along the way too, in terms of understanding how you would handle situations differently. So I think I've been able to learn a lot from the times that I've screwed up, and I take it really seriously, but nobody in this room can have a flawless career. People try to, if you look at people's resumes, everybody's resume always looks wonderful. But if you're honest with yourself and you can really take the dings, and the dings happen to everybody all the time, it's happened to me many, many, many times, and learn from them and figure it out. And it's also the interrelationships with people. I find that there's, in my life, an inextricable link between the people that I want to work for, that's my North Star, who the person is, and being able to develop great internal relationships and relationships with people outside. I think that carries the day, but relationships are not all there is anymore. You have a lot more stuff behind it. So when you make a mistake, learn.
Great. I just want to go back to your
Could we just ask, a couple of people haven't had a chance, so we'll get back to you. No, it's okay.
If there was a company or a boss that you could work for, who would it be? If you left your job right now, is there a company or a boss that you really admire from where you sit right now? Or are you guys...
Repeat the question.
Is there a company or a boss or somebody that a leader that we admire that we would go and work for right now? So, I mean, there are a lot of them. Everybody in the room would say Tim Cook now. They said Steve Jobs before at Apple. So he's doing, obviously, some pretty cool. I'm really lucky in that working at BuzzFeed, working for our founder, I'm working for somebody that looks at the world completely differently. So I would give you those two.
Yeah, and I've spent my last 10, 15 years in the cloud and in 3 or 4 different companies. So IBM, I helped manage part of their cloud, so the gerbil and hamster commercials you see, all that stuff. So in the cloud world, the Google and Amazon and Microsoft and cloud companies, those are great spots to be, but it really comes down to people again. So bright, brilliant, forward-thinking, compassionate people, working with them is what drives me and makes me happy. Building great teams, just like Don Roberts did, and climbing those mountains, so much fun.
Greg, this is a question for you. So I currently live in DC, and I work for a digital ad online network that does programmatic targeting. Yeah. So curious about where's BuzzFeed's future with politics, especially with the 2016 campaign coming.
Right.
And if you
So the question is, where's BuzzFeed's future in politics? The answer is, I don't know, but let me tell you what pisses me off. Every election for the last 12 years, going back to when I was at Yahoo, we would put a team on it, we would get ready, we would be in the market, we would talk to people, and what do? They spend 98% of the money on television, on local goddamn TV ads that make me want to throw up and puke and hurt people. So, again, here we are in 2016. I'm doing the same thing. People are giving us good signs. People want to engage. They like the Obama video. Can you do that for me? We'll see. So there's a case. I don't have a perfect answer. I've tried, and it's not worked out. I failed. So is the other digital media companies. But it's a big deal. So my guess is that social media has to be taken seriously, and the spend has to shift. But God, I've been wrong for a long time.
In the back.
So we're sitting here at a venerable institution that's celebrating its 100th anniversary. The last couple of years I've gotten involved with online.
We should close.
And
One more question.
I don't think traditional education,
give it another 5 minutes.
Teaching will ever go away, but I'm curious what each of you guys thinks about what the role of online and is, since you're both tech guys.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, for me, the most meaningful relationships.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, the question was about online versus face-to-face learning. My personal experiences and my 5 children and kids of friends, etc. I think the most meaningful experiences are these kinds of experiences in this age group, 10 to 16 or 12 to 18. So for me, that has to be face-to-face in a high-touch environment. The education in places like this are, par excellence. When you do your continuous education, which I still do, every day, learning, life journey, I see that online much more. And then in places where you can't have the high face-to-face touch, rural Thailand, wherever it might be, then you want to leverage that where you can. But ideally, it's age-based education for this high school years, face-to-face, you can't beat it.
So what I would say is I agree you can't beat it, but some of the facts around the economics of going to school and spending the money and having the time and getting the attention. So we're seeing a surge in, and everybody is, a surge in online education. You look at Code Academy, you look at what's going on there, completely breakthrough. I wish it was around when I was here at Canberra. It would have helped me out a lot.
Sure.
The Cliff Notes my father brought me could only get me so far in my education. But I think you're going to see a massive upheaval and we're starting to see it right now, of those people that want to get an education, that don't have the time because they're working, they can't pay the bills, they can't go to the places like Canterbury or the finer colleges. I think that the science and the technology and the learnings through online are going to blow us all away. I think it's starting right now, and I think it's going to become huge. Yeah. Not everybody is as fortunate as we have been that have gone to school here.
Greg, maybe two more questions?
Okay, two more.
Do it.
So my question is about, I have a 15-year-old, and I'm kind of old school, but I see in my interaction with social media, I hear this giant sucking sound, and something that's supposed to take 1 minute ends up to take up 3 hours. I'm going to this video and that website, and I get, I'm supposed to be mature and disciplined, and I find myself, kind of getting sucked in, and, I worry about my kid. She's always in front of this computer, and she's got this plate full of stuff in front of her, and the necessity to make choices, and I worry about that from, is she going to get educated in the same way that I did with this smorgasbord in front of her 24/7? Do you have any concerns like that?
So we get asked, the question a lot. So she will become a Scientologist if she's I'm quite sure. But try to break them from that, to tell your daughter, no, you may not use that. That's not going to work. They're going to figure that out. So in terms of my own children, older children now, I can't control where they're spending their time. If it was 10 years ago, I couldn't control that. If they're coming to school at Canterbury, you can't control that. The school used to all be wired. Now everything is wireless. It's really hard to block people. It's just impossible. This is the world that we live in right now. So I think as a parent, you can do the best thing you can in terms of mentoring your child and making the right choices. But in terms of where they go, they're in this world, and they're going to have to take your lead, but then live it out on their own. There's just no way around it.
Yeah, no, for my kids and even my grandchildren, it's about balance, right? Isn't life all about balance? So helping them, because you're not going to stop it, and they need to learn the life skill of balancing how much time they play outside, how much time they're on this, and it's a lifelong process there, for sure, right?
We love the addiction. Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, one last question.
Last question.
George, Malamy in the back.
Greg, this is actually more of a statement, I think. Coming back, being a graduate of the class of '74, watching you guys are from our era. And at the convocation, there was a lot of focus on our era, which I find really important, because I think for the younger graduates, the fact that you guys are here, speak for me, I learned a ton. I'm basically in my career, but you're Canterbury guys, and like, you are who these people want to be. And I think the question was asked, what would you do if you went to the board? I think what you're doing, and what we should have more of here, is this during the school year, where graduates come back from across all categories and speak to the undergraduates. They will learn more in listening to you guys than they're going to get out of a book. And I think the impact of alumni coming back and speaking to the undergraduates is priceless, because you can have great impact on careers. And that, to me, when you talk about the benefit of the Canterbury education, you know, I went to college, I was with a lot of guys from other prep schools. I was always proud that I was from here. What I learned, we were as good or better than any of the other schools that were out there. When I look back at the classes of 71 and 72, I don't care any prep school in the country, what individuals across all categories have accomplished. It's mind-boggling to see you guys, and Keith was a year after me, Jim Sullivan, Barry from 65. I mean, this is what the school needs. And I think this is a tremendous start, and I think it could be the beginning of something really, really positive going forward.
Thanks, George. So how about that? I'd like to volunteer that Keith comes back and teaches full-time. That's my idea. But wonderful. Keith, thank you very much. John, let's get that back to you.
That was a terrific